Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. My name is Stan Christopoulos, and you're listening to Exploring Reality, where we attempt to show the reasonable and rational side of the Christian faith. If this is your first time listening, this is going to be the final video on the Kalam Cosmological Argument for God's existence. As a recap, we went over the argument and what it means in the first video. In the second video, I went over evidence to support it. And in this video, I'm going to cover objections to the argument. And as a reminder, since this is a deductive argument, the only way to attack the argument is through its premises. The objections I'm going to cover are a mix of the most common objections and some really good ones as well. So before I get started, thanks again for listening. Like and subscribe, share this video with your friends. All your support really matters to me. Let's dive in. So, premise one, everything that begins to exist has a cause. Here are the objections. So immediately some of you might jump instantly to quantum indeterminacy. So before I get to my counter argument to this, let me explain what this actually means to people who don't know what quantum physics and quantum indeterminacy actually is. So physics describes how objects move and behave in the world, but traditional physics have a limit when it comes to describing really, really small objects, such as like electrons and quarks. Because these particles are so small, they can act in really strange ways. For example, scientists have observed so-called virtual particles emerging apparently without cause from an empty vacuum. We have also observed atomic nuclei decaying and emitting alpha, beta, and gamma particles in an unpredictable way that appears to not have any cause. This is what's called quantum indeterminacy. Now, the case of these particles popping into existence doesn't actually prove the premise wrong, though, because these entities don't emerge from nothing. They actually emerge, again, from this vacuum. The vacuum I'm referring to is called the quantum vacuum or the quantum realm, if you've watched Ant-Man before. This is a field with very low energy levels, but it's still something rather than nothing. So this objection comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of the word nothing, as well as a misunderstanding of quantum indeterminacy. It equivocates the word nothing to the quantum realm, which are two very separate things. So we can see that the quantum mechanics objection doesn't show that something can come from nothing. It shows that something can come from the quantum vacuum. Objection overturned. Another objection. The first cause is logically incoherent because it existed before time. So this is going to be one of those mind-bendy kinds of conversations again. So if I lose you anywhere, let me know in the comments. And again, help me figure out a better way to explain these things. So first off, this comes from a semantic issue, which is fair. And we can't really say that there was a time before time because time didn't exist for there to be time before time. So remember, time is the passing of moments, and that means no moments passed when time did not exist. Time and eternity are two very separate things, right? So eternity is a singular moment that stays without the passing of time, and time is the passing of moments. In eternity, there's one unified singular moment. So with that out of our way, this objection actually cuts both ways. It cuts into the argument, but it also cuts against itself as well. So what I mean by that is if the objector wants to insist that it's impossible because the first cause existed before time, they have to remember that insisting a moment before time is to begin with is incoherent as an objection. So what we have is a timeless, unchanging, because it's eternal, first cause whose first act is bringing the universe into existence. This first act is the same exact eternal moment as all of eternity. In other words, God, in a philosophical sense, didn't have moments passing to make a choice. The eternal moment of him choosing was the same as the eternal moment outside of time. So this would nullify the objection, first of all, and on top of that, it stays philosophically consistent. So again, the eternal moment is in itself identical to the first act of causing the universe to come into being. The last thing I want to address is that semantic issue that probably led to this objection, which is the phrase before time. Now, I probably said it, and I probably said it begrudgingly in my last two videos, but in actuality, the more philosophically consistent way to phrase this is, like I said, outside or without time. The philosophical phrase that people would use is sans time, and that means without or outside of time. We can use that phraseology and explain away the objection the way I just did, and therefore nullifying the objection. Okay, so next objection. The first premise doesn't apply to the universe since time began at the Big Bang. So at first glance, this seems like a good exception, but when you look deeper, there are a few things that are wrong with it. So the biggest one being that the objector here is using the word universe as if it's something different than the reality that we live in. So what I mean is the universe is made up of space-time and matter. So if it didn't apply to the universe, why doesn't anything like a Ferrari pop up into existence out of nowhere? It's still just matter, and matter popped into being out of nothing if it wasn't for this first uncaused cause. So we just don't see this happening, and it's not reasonable to conclude that the same applies to the universe as a whole if it doesn't apply to matter itself by itself. If the objector really wants to insist that this doesn't apply to the universe as a whole, then why doesn't a universe pop into existence by nothing within our own universe? At the end of the day, this is a fallacy called special pleading. If objects within our universe need a cause when the atoms and molecules already exist, then it is even more true that the universe as a whole needs a cause to exist, because there's an extra step in the equation, i.e., the creation of matter, energy, space, and time. With all that being said, the objection is overturned. Next objection isn't really an objection. It's more of a question in the form of an objection, but it doesn't really attack any premises. Here's the objection. Who caused God? The first premise is everything that begins to exist has a cause. The word begins there is very important. It doesn't say that everything that exists has a cause. So time was created, meaning the cause was eternal, which means this cause did not have a beginning, it did not have an end, which means it did not begin to exist, it just always existed. To say otherwise would suggest infinite regress, which we showed in the last video isn't possible, so given this, it's an objection from ignorance of the concepts that we laid out, rendering the objection null. So now we're going to move on to premise 2 objections, and here's the first one. What about an oscillating universe model? So even though this isn't a model that's accepted by most cosmologists, it's still an objection that might be possible. So has the universe been contracting and expanding for eternity? So first of all, this claim needs to be proved, and it has not met its burden of proof, especially when you make an objection. Anytime you make an objection, you have to carry a burden of proof with it. So given that, I'm still going to give my argument against this model's existence. The second law of thermodynamics, for instance, is highly understood and would refute this model. The reason why is because it would require more energy for the universe to expand and contract multiple times. So we would expect that the universe would not be reaching max entropy in order for this oscillating universe to happen. The second law of thermodynamics shows that max entropy always increases, meaning that the oscillating universe can't work since it requires more energy and not less. This again would also be an infinite process, but we can know that actual infinites can't exist. This oscillating universe would leave us with an infinite regression that again would destroy science. So again, objection overturned. Next objection. The singularity is infinite and eternal and just consists of matter. So first of all, this is a misunderstanding of what the singularity is. When we trace the expansion of the universe back to its starting point, we find that there was a singular moment when there was no time, space, or matter. This shows that there could not have been a singular point with an eternal and infinite amount of only matter. General relativity would also show this to be false because it shows that time, matter, and space are relative. And on top of that, because of the nature of space, time, and matter, if one of the three come into existence, then they all have to. For instance, if space didn't exist, then where would matter be? If time didn't exist, then when would matter be? We can see that because of these types of questions, we can actually see again that the three are codependent on each other existing. Nullifying this objection. Next objection is a fun one. What about a multiverse? So this is more of a metaphysical, philosophical question than a scientific one, strictly because a multiverse, as it stands right now, can't be proved or disproved by the scientific method. Nonetheless, I'm going to provide a counter argument to this. So let's assume that a multiverse does exist. This doesn't really do anything to the argument. It actually adds to the necessity of God through more universes being made, because there still needs to be a first uncaused cause. Essentially, the whole show of the multiverse would still need a beginning. It also seems to push the problem back even more because the second law of thermodynamics would still apply to these other universes. It should also be pointed out that most of the popular multiverse theories by scientists and philosophers, such as eternal inflation, suggest that other universes would not be able to even interact with our universe, so therefore another universe can't be the cause of our universe, even in principle. Again, objection null. So here are some other objections other than objections that really attack the premises. They're not necessarily going to be very good ones, again, because they're not attacking the premises, but I think they're important because of the accusations that come with them. So here's an example. It's a God of the gaps argument. So first of all, this is not a God in the gaps argument, and this is why. This is a philosophical argument that is not used to explain some sort of scientific phenomenon that we can't explain. Science is actually used to help reinforce the premises of this argument, and in fact, we're using God to explain something that we do explain, that we do understand, such as the fact that the universe had a beginning and everything that begins to exist has a cause. Again, you would have to refute these premises to accuse the argument of explaining something that we don't understand. Finally, if you claim that science will one day have an explanation, then you must state an explanation for that. Otherwise, you commit something called an appeal to ignorance fallacy, because you are appealing to something that we don't know anything about. Kind of like what the objection attempts to accuse the Kalam Cosmological Argument of doing. This would be a futuristic, naturalistic explanation to account for the origin of the universe, which would also beg the question, because you're assuming that there will be a naturalistic explanation for the beginning of the universe. This sounds like some blind faith to me, which most atheists will think is what makes Christianity to be foolish. Let's go to the next one. Again, another question. Why does the cause have to be God? So we went over the attributes, but let's look through this again. Spaceless, timeless, immaterial, personal, powerful, intelligent. So time, matter, and space had a beginning. So that means that whatever was outside of time, matter, and space couldn't have been time, matter, and space because they didn't exist to cause it. Furthermore, because the cause would have to be uncaused because of the fact that it's eternal, we have to stop at a certain point because otherwise we're left with infinite regress. It exists outside of time, so it's eternal, past, and future. The cause would also have to be very powerful, again, to be able to cause all space, time, and matter to come into being. It would have to be intelligent because the universe is finely tuned, and on top of that, it's a personal being because it has to make a choice. It doesn't really matter what you call this cause of the universe. You can call it a flying spaghetti monster, but that doesn't change the attributes. The only thing it changes is the name of the uncaused cause. If I call it God, it sounds a lot more accurate than you calling it a flying spaghetti monster, because a flying spaghetti monster is made up of space, time, and matter, when God isn't. Next objection. Why would the cause have to be conscious or personal? The wind causes a leaf to fall off a tree. So why would the cause of the universe not be an impersonal force like the wind? Wouldn't it be special pleading to say the cause of the universe is a being of some sort? The person claiming this would be missing the point and would have to realize the special case. There are three reasons why the cause of the universe would have to be a mind. There are two. One is that the fact that there are two main immaterial realities: abstract objects like numbers and immaterial minds. Objects don't have a free will capability to make choices and don't have ultimate causing power, while immaterial minds do. Secondly, the cause would have to be a mind, because if this cause was an unconscious object, then even if this unconscious object did cause the universe, it wouldn't be able to make the choice of making anything other than itself, meaning that its effect would be eternal, meaning the universe would be eternal, which we've shown that it's not. But a mind can choose to make it not eternal. Finally, the initial conditions set at the Big Bang are fine-tuned, such as the expansion rate of the universe, and this implies rationality, which implies a type of mind. And those are the three reasons why this question doesn't work as an argument. So this is a fun one, and it derives from a worldview called Empiricism, which I can make a different video on in the future. Essentially, though, Empiricism says that truth is only knowable through empirical evidence. And that kind of falls on its own sword, but here's the objection. Truth cannot be discovered from wholly reason alone. So while it's true that one needs some level of empirical data in order to judge some things, one absolutely needs reason, or the ability to rationalize, to judge all things. So I don't see how this is an objection to even the premises. So because it uses reason itself in order to tell us reason doesn't tell us the whole story, the objection falls on its own sword. It uses reason as its source to justify itself when it says that you can't know truth solely from reason. It's a self-refuting objection. It's like saying, you shouldn't impose your morality on me. But in this statement, you're imposing your morality that someone shouldn't impose their morality on someone else, but you're sitting there doing the same thing. It's a self-defeating, self-refuting claim or objection. So because of that, it renders the objection null and void again. And that's it. Those were the 11 most common and best objections to the Kalam Cosmological Argument. So what did we learn from this series? The Kalam Cosmological Argument and what it is. We learned that the universe has a cause, that the cause is spaceless, timeless, immaterial, personal, powerful, and intelligent, i.e. God. And we went over evidence to support both the premises and the analysis of the cause. And we finally went over objections in this video and counter arguments and showed where the objections fail. So next I'm going to be doing a few different things. I'm starting a series called the Defending the Bible series. So it's going to be a very, very long series, multiple videos. We're going to be talking about contradictions in the Bible, harder to digest parts of the Bible, and even the parts where people will claim that the Bible makes God look immoral. So each video will be pretty short and to the point, and it's going to overlap with some other things that'll come along if you guys decide you want to break from the Bible series. So in the comments, tell me what bothers you about the Bible and what makes you doubt it. Let me know, and I can try to provide an answer for you, especially if I've never heard what you bring to me. It's going to be really helpful. As always, thank you so much again for listening. Let me know what you guys thought of the video in the comments. Let me know what you guys thought about the series as a whole. Would you like a different format in the future? Let me know. Give me your ideas. Like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel. Share the channel with your friends, family. And I really appreciate your guys' love and support. And I really appreciate how you guys have gone in and bought into this channel and helped me raise the community to what I really hope it's going to be. If you want to be part of the Apologetics Discord server I made, the link will be in the description. Until next time, guys. See you later.